Hello guys, I'm Jose and this is tutorial number 24 on Eclipse. Right, so what I want to talk about today is it's about Eclipse, right? So I'm hoping that our internet connection allows us to... Okay, what is Eclipse? Eclipse is IDE, so it's a platform, it's a software that will allow us to write code, write Java code, and some other stuff as well eventually. But it will help us. It's an environment that it's much more professional than processing. And a lot of people that start writing processing and they kind of get annoyed by a few things that they realize it's a much better way to actually keep track of what you're doing in your projects and different classes and everything if you actually work in a better environment. So there's a few tutorials already out there. I will post this in my series of tutorials, so I hope that this kind of solves some of the issues. So the one that you need to download first, if you go to the eclipse.org website in downloads, is this one, right? I'm using the Mac, so I would go for Mac OS X 64-bit. You can go for the 32-bit if you're in 32-bit system, and if you're in PC, you should have the version that it's suggested for you. So when you have that, you will have the icon. You have to install it, of course, and you will have Eclipse ready to go. Eclipse doesn't know about processing by default, right? So it will ask you what is the folder. Just create a folder where you will store everything, all your Eclipse files. You can just call it Eclipse, for instance, and it will be empty. So you won't have what I have already. I'm going to show you basically how to start from scratch, right? So this is Eclipse. I'm going to close some of the stuff that I've been working on. So this is Eclipse, right? Let me try to zoom it in the window so you can see the whole thing, right? You probably don't have anything. No, you will come to a welcome screen by default. That welcome screen, it's not too useful. I'm dealing with a little bit of lag right now, so right. So here, right, here we go. So the welcome screen is this one, right? You should have this welcome screen once you open Eclipse. Just close it, right? So if that's what you're seeing, close it and you'll come to this window. As I said, your folder should be completely empty in this side. And the next thing that you want to do is go to Help and say Install New Software, right? And what this will basically do, it will allow you to install plugins and a few things. And there's several plugins that are quite interesting, but maybe the one that we will see in this tutorial, it's Proclipsing. If you type in Google Proclipsing, you will find this link, right? That is Proclipsing, Eclipse Processing Development Tools. If we go into this website, it will show you. Basically, we'll have a little tutorial of how to use it, right? How to install it. So what you need to do, you need to follow this link here that says if you would like to install Proclipsing, just find the instructions here. And this will take you to a little tutorial. And just follow the steps, right? It's 2 or 3 steps that you have to do, and it's pretty simple. It says what I'm basically showing you: install new software. You will have to pick this address, right? Copy it. I'm just going into Eclipse. You would set add here. You will call this Philipson, and you will put the location here. In my case, I already have it installed, so it's saying that I'm duplicating something that is already in there. But for you, it will be an OK. You will get to this screen. It might take a little while, you know. Just let it think. It's basically downloading the open source and completely free plugin for you. And it will tell you, okay, there's these 2 ingredients that contain in that plugin. So you would say next, and it will tell you again, do you want to install? Yes, great. So that's it. You will have Philipson installed. So you will be here, right? Now with Philipson installed. The next thing that you need to do is go to Eclipse Preferences, and now you will have something called Philipson. Don't look at anything else, just Philipson. And here you need to specify where is your processing application. So look for your processing application wherever you have it installed, and look for the document folder, right? Once you open processing for the first time, and this is where you have your libraries and everything, right? We saw that in one of the first tutorials. There's a folder that gets generated automatically, and that folder is the one that you need to point out, because Philipson will open a wizard that will help you out and say, do you want to import? It will ask you if you want to import any library, right? And it will look into that folder for any libraries to see what do you want to bring in from the libraries that you already have in processing. So it really works together with processing instead of just being a completely standalone. Right, so let's assume that you kind of linked, you have properly pointed out to these 2 addresses. So let's start a new project. What I just did is press here, new project, and this will allow me to pick from many different templates to start different kind of projects. If you look into these folders, you should have one that it says processing, right? In my case, I have 2 because there's another kind of plugin out there for actually doing processing sketches in Eclipse. I tried it out, and I think that still Philipson is actually quite better, because it really gives you the power of Eclipse for writing code. So we're going to say next, and this is what it's going to ask us now. So let's call, how do you want to call this project? We're going to call it tutorial 24, I think, and it will be an application. This doesn't really matter, and these are the libraries that come with processing by default, right? So we're going to say we're going to use OpenGL, and these are the libraries that I have in my path. And, these are all the libraries that I have installed in my system. So I'm going to say, okay, maybe I want to work with Eclipse, maybe I want to work with PCCam. Let's say just that, okay? And when we press finish, you couldn't see the finish button, but I just pressed finish. It will create, probably it will be the first folder for you, but in my case we have a few others. So let me look for the tutorial. So here, tutorial 24. Basically, you open this folder, you open the source folder here, and you will get tutorial 24, and you have, if you double click on this element here, this will be where your code is. And this will automatically create a few lines of code for you, and you don't have to get scared, but it's exactly the same that you know from processing. So let's see what we have. It says class tutorial 24 extends applet. This is the key kind of element that you need to understand when you kind of start working with Eclipse. When you start working with Eclipse, you realize that processing basically it's a class that was written by Ben Fry and Casey as a Java class that is called the applet class, right? What we do in our sketch and when we start writing code is we extend basically the class applet, so we can use all the functionality of the class applet, of processing basically, plus whatever we want to do. And this is a very powerful concept that we need to understand in order to just use processing commands in different areas of our code. So let's say we want to, as usual, we want to say size 800 by 600, right? And that's, notice that Eclipse was telling me, hey, you're having a little mistake there, or you were not, let's say if I do not put my semicolons, it will tell me. These are the first things that you start realizing that Eclipse is great. It will tell me where syntax errors are. It will help me solve some of the issues. It will suggest solutions, and it will allow me to collapse functions and many other things. It will autocomplete my sentences. So it's really a great environment to work. Let's do something simple like background 0 as usual. And this bit here you don't need to worry really, but this is actually allowing you to run this as an application. It's a bit of code that has been generated automatically, so don't worry about that. And you can see that it's working exactly as before. We will go through some of the differences that we will have to face when we're writing code, especially when we do different classes. So let's do something like ellipse mouse x, mouse y, 30, 30. Right. So as you can see, we're writing commands as if we were writing in processing. Right? Everything seems the same. So let's go to some of the differences. For instance, first thing, if you want to use something like a float, let's say I want this ellipse to be 31.5, I will have an error. You need to put a little F here, saying that it's a float. If you've seen that F somewhere else, this is what it means. It means that it has been written in in Eclipse, and you need to specify with an F every time that you do a float, right? So that's fairly simple. It's not really complicated. It will let you know whenever you have we don't have that F, that you have a mistake there, so you will have to remember to put it. The main issue really is when you actually do a class. Let's do a class, let's say main point, right? So I press this button here to create a new class. I call it point, and I pressed OK, and it automatically will create a class for me. So this class point let's say we want to use a vector 3D location, right? And it will tell me, hey, location cannot be resolved. It will suggest to me to import Toxi Eclipse library to actually solve that issue, right? So that's really great. We're gonna say this point just the same way we have been doing classes before. I'm just doing something very simple here. Run or display. So right, this is the first problem. How do we actually use the commands like point log.x, log.y? And it's telling me, hey, wait, you don't have anything called point really. And I look around and I cannot access the commands of processing because the way this class is working with it is that it's extending applet. So when it extends applet, it can actually use the processing commands here. But this class here, it's not extending anything. It's not. So it's not that we need to make each class extend applet. We can cast this applet or this our class tutorial 24 into our new class. How do we do that? Okay, so this is the trick. Each time we create a new class, the first ingredient that we need to put here in the constructor is the main class. In our case, it's called tutorial 24, right? So I'm going to say, oops, I'm going to say tutorial 24 underscore p5, comma, vector location. And this tutorial 24 p5 will represent, so this p5, basically saying processing, will represent, will have all the functions of processing. Let's see what we need to do for that. Equals underscore p5. That's it. And now if we type something like p5 dot point, it works. Again, what we're doing here is it's casting our main class into our subclasses. We are determining that tutorial 24 is our main class. And this will have probably tutorial 24 will have some global variables or whatever. But it also contains all the processing commands. In order to be able to use those processing commands in every class, in every of our subclasses, we make a version of that, an instance of that class in our class, in all our subclasses. So this is the way it would be written. You have to do this for every class that you actually write. P5, I use P5. You could use any name, but P5 is quite representative of processing, right? And it's quite short, so it's quite useful. It will also help you out if you want to say P5 dot it will help you out by telling you all the commands that processing has available for you to work with, right? So it will tell you, let's say, something like stroke. It's taking a second to load here. But if you're looking for something like the stroke weight, right, stroke weight or stroke, it will let you know what are the constructors of the stroke. You could say a float defining the gray, an integer defining the RGB, a float defining the gray and the alpha channel, etc. It will give you all the information to autocomplete, and you just need to fill the fields to work with. So usually we actually do something like RGB, like this one, right? So it's really handy, and you just need to get used to building this instance of the class. Why? I mean, some people actually cast the p-applet itself into the subclasses. I like casting the main class altogether, this one, because if I do a global variable, something like, if for some reason I need to do something like integer calls equals 100, right? And I go here to my subclass and I say p5 dot calls, right? This field exists in this subclass, even though it was created in the main class, right? And that's the way processing works. You can actually create a variable anywhere in your main tab, and it will be visible to all your subclasses. So you might see out there in some tutorials that people really just cast the p-applet instead of their own class, and that's fine. It makes it better if you want to just move your class between different projects, and that's alright. But if you want it to work similar to processing, just do it this way. So just to finish this idea, we're gonna call this this class into the space. So to see how that would be, we're gonna say, what's the name of it? Point pt. So pt equals new point, and here in the constructor we put this, meaning that this is the this class is the first field to give a vector that we need to produce. Right, so it's saying you need to import Eclipse again. Okay. So we're creating a new point in a random position in the width and the height of our canvas. And then we're gonna say pt dot right, or pt dot display. This guy should have a stroke weight of 8. Right, so it's a yellow color and it's quite thick, so we can actually see it because it will be positioned in some random place, right? The main thing is that we're using this, right, so that's where the point ended up. This here refers how do we cast this class into our subclass. So this is the first field that we need to fill, and we're using this command here to cast it. And then the second one is a vector, right? So these are the main differences, and with this you're actually ready to go and start writing some Eclipse. If you have any problems with it, for instance, some of the problems that you will run into are like, how do you convert an integer into a float, or stuff like that in Eclipse. Basically what you're asking is how do you do it in Java without referring to Eclipse itself. You're writing Java now and you're using processing as one of the libraries to actually work, but you can bring other stuff inside. Any Java library you can start working with, and see how you can integrate it with some of the stuff that processing is giving you as a graphical interface, right? So just if you have any problems with anything, just Google how does Java work and start Googling for Java stuff instead of processing, and you will find solutions for little differences between processing and Java. But writing in this environment will really boost your development of code, and will allow you to kind of be more consistent with the work that you're producing. I hope you liked it.